We are live. It's not 11:05, but you should be cheering. The anthem's over, and we have a new sheriff in town. So today we're going to do some brakes. Happy to be walking by this a little earlier. Sean's finishing it up. We're taking it to somewhere. This is going. It's a kit for somebody. We don't normally put the brake lines on it, but this one we did put the brake lines on for the customer. I guess it's an option we offer, and it's going to get shipped out. We were going to do Larry's car today, Larry A. And since we're kind of a small little group, Larry asked us to pray for him. His wife has a little problem with her eye, and Larry, we're going to do that. God's a good God, and He can handle it. I remember one time they were saying some bad things about my wife Ann, this a few years ago, and she went into surgery, and it didn't look really good. But they come out from surgery, and I remember the oncologist came into the room and said, "You don't need me anymore. There's no problem here." So our God's a big God. He can handle it. We will keep Larry in our prayers. Wanted to say that. We were going to do Larry's car today. Probably see that Monday, and I will be talking to Larry, doing the color thing, but we're going to work on getting the floor painted this weekend so we can flip that thing over and then start working on the top of it. So we'll probably be talking a lot about paint next week. But today, we're just going to, since this was sitting here, go over some brake lines.
And the cool tools that we use.
Well, we did do a show. Did we not do a show on the double flares?
Yes.
It may be way back down the thing, but it was a good, and then we did some YouTube videos on brakes. So it's out there. I'm not going to show you how to do a double flare, but absolutely, you got to do a double flare. Here's a cool tool. I did get a cool tool. It's a, quick, tell me what it is. Anybody know? If you don't know, when you get your brake line, it comes all coiled up. And straight brake line looks so good. I can try to straighten it by hand, but by the time I get it all straightened, it's not so straight. There we go. So it's a pretty cool tool. We have a couple different sizes. We can use it for our, we use aluminum tubing to go back for our gas lines a lot of times, and that'll straighten that out too. So this is a neat tool. I'm not sure who makes it. Probably they come from Snap-on or somebody,
Yeah,
but
about $100.
It's only $100. So to straighten your lines out one time, yeah, I'd buy it. But no, we use it a lot here, and it's just a handy tool. And for those guys that have a tool fetish like my son, if it's a cool tool, he buys it even though he doesn't use it. But there's that. I like it a lot. If you use it a lot, it's definitely worth it. So let's just start in the front here, and I'm just going to kind of show you how we do the brakes on it. It's a 23T. This one happens to have power brakes, so it's got a booster on it. Something that's pretty important, this one has through frame fittings, and it doesn't have to have a through frame fitting. It can have a tab welded, and you can put a different type of fitting. But this through frame fitting, you can see it's on the top side of the frame here. If you look from the side, make sure that you don't put this in the center or to the bottom. Put it to the top, because your radius rods are going to come in and they're going to go in this direction, and you don't want it so close to this that it's going to come up and hit that. So this is something you really need to remember. So this is a through frame fitting. You just actually, that's probably,
Yeah, they're just hand tight.
well, but I'd have to take it all apart. It just goes through, tightens on here. It's an AN fitting, goes on this side with a braided line, goes to your caliper. And then this is a compression fitting on this side. So we come down, we go along the bottom of the frame on this one. We come down and go along the bottom of the frame. Are both fronts. Now it's possible you could come down one side and go across the front, but we think it's cleaner. This is just the way we do it. So we take both our front frame, our front brake lines, and go down along the frame rails, and then we come and we tee it back as we come back behind the cross member. There's a couple different ways you can secure it. We've not secured this one because obviously the customer is going to take it apart and paint it. So we've got holes drilled here. You can do this one of two ways. You can either drill an 1/8 inch hole there and just put a pop rivet in it, or you can drill it and tap it 1/4 and use like a nice stainless button head and just put it in there with an Allen wrench. Either way, just secure it so that your brake lines aren't just falling around. Something we've done, and we didn't do it for a long time, and I don't know why. It was such an obvious thing. We made this go down a little bit farther. This is for the steering box, so you can run your line up underneath that bracket. Keep it clean under the thing. When you're standing back, you really can't from the angle. I mean, Josh is pretty low on it. You really can't see the brake lines under there. It's a clean look. So we've teed the rear or the front brakes together. We've teed it, and we put a proportioning valve in the front. There's going to be an argument. I've had people actually argue with me that it needs to go in the back. The purpose of the proportioning valve is so that your front brakes and your back brakes lock up at the same time. You don't want to have your front brakes locking up first, and on a slick floor like this is a pretty slick floor in our shop here, or if you're on gravel or something like that, what'll happen, your front brakes will lock up and your back brakes or your back wheels will keep pushing it, and you will just slide. You can't turn, you can't do anything, you'll just slide. And if that's happening to you, what you need to do is you need to cut back the pressure for your front brakes, and then you just do that by turning the valve. And turn the valve until you get it adjusted the way you like it, and that's set, done forever. They've got proportioning valves that are actually built into the master cylinders, or go to them, and different ones on stock cars, so that there's no adjustment at all. It's just already preset. But here's that. The reason we do it on the front is so much lighter. On a heavy car, it makes a difference, but the front end is so light that you need to just cut down the pressure for your front, and that's why we put it there. So there it is. You can debate with me if you want, but this is how Spirit does it. Put it where it needs to be. That's the ultimate answer. And on bigger cars, yes, you do need to put it in the back. We like to use a brake switch that's a pressure style brake switch, so we come right off of the proportioning valve. It's just like a T right there, screws right into it, and then this goes on. Just all this is a switch. When it hits pressure, it makes contact between these two, so you're running a wire. Your brake wires is positive, and then when it connects, you have power, and it engages your brake lights. They turn on. Come around. I mean, we could turn these, come clean, come tight with no loop. But if you ever have to move something or take it apart or just mess with your brake lines, it is awful handy to have this little bit of room. You can move things around. It's not so tight. If you gotta, for some reason, if you happen to get a leak on the end and you needed to reflare it and you needed to come back another 1/4 inch or something, well, there's a 1/4 inch here. You can take it and you can have it back here, and it's just something we do in ours. It's not necessary, but it doesn't look bad. It's a separate bracket for a standard master cylinder versus a booster. The standard cylinder is a little bit different bracket. It's in a little bit different place. And well, there we go. Here's one set up with just so you can see it's a little bit different bracket. This is this looks like a 27 frame, and it's going to be set up with a 9-inch, obviously. So we come back. The dual reservoir master cylinder. I mean, the old single. That's the old days. If you got one, I would highly recommend. At least if your master cylinder goes out, it only halfway goes out. If you got just a single well one, it goes out. You got no brakes. Check. Well, let's just get all the way around the back first. So same thing. I'm coming around the back. I've got to tee it at some point. So what I've done, I've used through frame fittings again here, and there's going to be an AN fitting here with a braided line. It's going to come down, tie into the, whether it be disc brakes or drum brakes, it doesn't matter, but it just goes in. Comes around the frame here, and the same, we're going to have an AN fitting with a braided line that comes down. And you can also, again, on the back here, you could weld a tab here. There's a fitting that goes in it with a clamp, come down onto your rear end. And a lot of cars, you'll see instead of coming around on the frame with two coming down, it'll come down with one braided line, and then it'll be hard just all the way to both brakes on the differential itself. So we just chose to do it this way. We do it both ways, but this is the way we do it on this one. Brakes, bottom line, the fundamentals of hydraulics, pretty simple. There's no give. There's no give in that oil, just like there's no give in water, where if I got air, I can compress air. And that's why when you bleed your brakes, you need to have all the air out, because what will happen is your master cylinders, it tries to push that fluid to the brake into the wheel cylinder and push that pad out. If there's air in it, what it'll do is it'll compress that air, and that air will compress before the pads on your brakes compress against your rotor or your caliper or whatever, or against your rotor or your drum in the back. So bleed it. There's different ways to bleed. I think we'll do that on a different program altogether, just focused on bleeding. But generally, you got four wheels, you've got to split it, you've got a front, and you've got a rear. Definitely I would put a proportioning valve in there, and if for some reason I'm just wrong and your back is locking up way before your front, then you would need to move the proportioning valve and you could put it on the back side here. But the purpose of the proportioning valve is to restrict the flow, and as you restrict the flow, then the back brakes get more pressure to them faster than the front brakes do. So we're good there, we're quick. Today, we're just going to make this just a quick one. We're probably not real long. Larry, we're thinking about you. And I got thinking last night, if you did not watch the presidential welcome party or whatever the heck they called it last night, I seen it. There was a fireworks display at the end of that. Oh, incredible. It was just amazing. The music behind it, the choirs that sang, and then President Trump went to and stood before the Lincoln Memorial. Powerful. We usually end with a quote from my buddy Hot Rod Man out of his books, Coffee Break Contemplations, or what's the other one? Pass It On. But I looked up some Lincoln quotes just a little bit ago, and so I want to do a quote. I'm going to do actually a couple quotes from Lincoln. And these are good. This is, let's have a good time. Let's build our hot rods, have fun. But there's a lot of things in life that matter. In the end, it's not the years in your life that count. It's the life in your years. So don't get old and die without having accomplished something. Get focused. Do something. Have a good time. Interact. So that's a quote from Lincoln. That's a good one. In the end, it's not the years in your life that count, but the life in your years. Here's another one. I like this a lot. Most folks are about as happy as they make up their minds to be. I don't really like people who are always, oh, we're doomed, we're doomed, we're doomed. No, let's have a good time doing what we're doing. Sometimes we have problems in life and it goes on, but we can still be happy. My God's in control, so that's a good thing. This is one really appropriate for today. I'm going to end with this one for today, and next week, next Monday, Larry, I'll be talking to you, and we're going to see Larry's car. We're going to see it upside down. We're maybe back right side up, but we're going to be doing some priming. We're going to be doing some painting, and we're a little late. The guys are back from lunch, and Josh is giving the zip it sign. So here's the last quote of the day. Nearly all men can stand adversity, but if you want to test a man's character, give him power. So that's it for today. God bless President Trump. He's got a daunting task in front of him. Thank you, President Obama, for your service. And let's go back to making America great, one hot rod at a time. Have a good day.